Well, for the last 1 hour, we have been having this conversation around climate change, and now it is time to change gears and talk about the inclusion of women in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. You know, we are going to feed you with some very interesting numbers here, so get ready to do a little bit of munching of those numbers, because this conversation is around empowering women and girls, you know, to dive deep into the world of STEMs. Joining us this morning is Romana Rajput. She's a country general manager for Interswitch, East Africa, Kenya. Thank you very much indeed, Romana, for joining us here. And of course, next to Romana is Jack Ngare. He is the Microsoft Africa Development Center. Thank you very much, Jack, for your time. And I want to start with Rajput. You see, on the 11th of this month, the world celebrated the 7th International Day of Women and Girls in Science. What conversation came out of that of that day?
So I think what is apparent is that there are not enough women in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, what we call STEM. And we need to sort of put an emphasis more on trying to encourage women to get into these fields. This is no longer a male-dominated field, as it has been traditionally, because today women are very capable of leading in the areas of STEM. And we need from their very basic education for them to be encouraged to take up STEM subjects so that they can support our economy as we are developing.
So when you say that we do not have enough women and girls, you know, in our STEM ecosystem, what exactly do you mean, and how many do we need before we can say now they're enough?
I don't know if there's a way to say there is enough, but what I can say is that we certainly need to move the numbers from less than 30%, which it is today. That women who are taking STEM subjects up to tertiary level, it's less than 30%. I'm happy to say the company that I work for, Interswitch, over 40% of the workforce are women. Yeah.
And that's a deliberate effort.
I'll say that we don't discriminate between men and women. If you're capable of doing the job and you can deliver, then we want you to be part of our team. And that's the important message. We have to stop sort of, how do I say, labeling that girls do this and boys do this, because girls are socialized from very young, you know, to be maybe nurturers only, but they can also contribute to society.
And so, I mean, how did you reach a 40% mark, you know, in a country whereby, you know, women make up less than 30% of all people in the STEM courses without, you know, having deliberate efforts and actions?
I'm happy to say that there are a lot more women who are coming out in STEM. So when the opportunities present themselves, they'll apply for the jobs. And when they compete against the men, they qualify. And so we give them the opportunity. So we don't make it an obvious conscious thing. We just believe that men and women are equal in the workforce, and as long as they can deliver, they can get the chance. So we don't discriminate that, oh, we'd prefer to have guys, we're in a technology field, they'll work longer and harder. That isn't true. Women work just as long and hard to deliver the services.
And those are the stereotypes that we need to address, and I'm sure we are going to deal with them here.
Yes.
Jack Ngare is the MD of Microsoft Africa Development Center. I want to hear from you. How hard is it, you know, to recruit women in the STEM industry?
Yeah, I mean, I'd just like to take a step back, Obram, to answer your question and let the audience appreciate why are STEM courses so important to the country and Africa at large. You know, the median age for Africa is 19 years old. So we have as many people below 19 as we have above 19. And if you look at the whole world where it's moving towards a technology-driven world. So if you expect to get traditional jobs, you know, like for example, you know, in the tea industry, tea pickers, you know, have been replaced by machinery that's actually doing this. So you're seeing a lot of movement towards technology-driven type jobs. And that is why we need to make the investment now as a country into STEM-driven courses that prepare our young people for the future. Otherwise, they will be disenfranchised. They'll be consumers of technology, but not necessarily building it and exporting it. Countries like India and China, biggest exports is technology. Now, let's take it to a sub-segment, women. Now, again, we have invested heavily in our education systems in male-driven type teaching for STEM courses. We haven't empathized with our girls and figured out how they think and how we can make it more attractive to them. And so even the positive role models they have are not so many. And so you find they can identify with a woman, let's say, who's in technology as much as they can identify with several, let's say, lawyers who are actually doing very well for themselves. And so for us as Microsoft, we established ourselves here in 2018, viewing the fact that Africa is one of the most promising continents where we can actually get engineers. As you know, Microsoft builds, your Windows, your cloud systems, and we are embedded into almost everything you do in your daily lives. And so for us, we came here with the intention to invest in engineering talent that exists in the African continent. Now, it's quite interesting. If we release a job post for, let's say, a developer of some sort, we'll probably get about 200 applicants. Yeah. And out of the 200 applicants, probably less than 20% are women who would like to join us. And that's also a startling, statistic for us, that we have to do more in investing in our education systems and in the training of girls to ensure that they take advantage of these opportunities.
And do you think that is happening?
So, I think there are lots of players who need to work together on this. It's not just, for example, the government to invest in education. I think it's all of us, including us as industry players. We have to do our part in ensuring that we impart the skill sets to the women who are actually aspiring to be in the technology field. The best paying jobs in the future will be technology type jobs. I mean, interesting statistic, at the back of an envelope, if you look at who are the top richest people in the world, are technology people. And so we have to make sure that we get more, and they're men. So we have to do a lot more better job in terms of getting more women into that cadre of the top richest people, and hopefully one of our Kenyan girls will get there. Yeah.
Look, I was interacting with some data from the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, whereby they were saying that only 35% of science, technology, engineering and mathematics students in higher education globally are women. How do we deal with that gender disparity? Rajput.
All right, so one of the things that Interswitch is doing is we have started a program called Interswitch Spark, which is identifying Form 3 students who are studying STEM subjects, and they're between the ages of 14 and 17. These are the formative years of their development, and we're making STEM fun. So we're putting out a quiz show that you can watch on YouTube as well if you follow Interswitch Spark. And what we're doing is we put them through the paces. We ask the teachers in the schools to look for these students who are top of their class. We take them through a sort of a test, and then we narrow it down to a few of them, about 50 or so, and then we take them through a quiz show that is televised. So we want to make STEM fun. We don't want it to seem like boring, difficult, hard stuff. We wanted them to see that life is about science, it's about technology, it's about engineering, it's about mathematics, and it's fun, and other kids can watch the show and they can learn. And then when we get the top 3 winners, we give them a scholarship to help them with their further education. So we're trying to do our part, if you like, in enabling both boys and girls. Now, the last program we had was back in 2019, and the winner was a girl. Yeah, and it's amazing. And we've had another show this year, and the winner will be announced. But the thing is that we are encouraging.
You're hoping it's going to be a girl.
Well, that is to be seen. But basically, what we've seen is girls can do it.
Girls can do it.
Girls can do it.
Let me hear from you. I mean, this is what you're doing at the micro level. But how do we elevate this kind of conversations, this kind of effort, at the macro level?
Yeah, so it is important. Why are we here today to discuss this? Because we need to tell people about it. So every angle, from social media, from television programs, from businesses holding forums for young people, celebrating women in technology, always. I mean, we have to do our part wherever we can. There is no place that there's no stone we should leave unturned to look for areas of where we've got to address this. We've got to be talking about it. It's got to be a subject of discussion. When we discuss it and we become intentional about making a change, and us women also need to come out there and talk about it and talk to our young nieces, our daughters, our cousins, you know. Our grandmothers didn't have this chance, but we do. And like Jack said, the world is going towards technology, whether you like it or not. Look at the Asian tigers today. Where are they? They're very far ahead. If you look at South Korea, if you look at Japan, and if you look at the countries in the Far East, China for sure, they're very far ahead in technology. Africa, as he said, is a young continent. We have the potential. There's 1 billion plus people on this continent.
Actually, 1.2 people.
1.2, there you go. And a lot of those are women. And half or maybe more than half are women.
Actually, 55%.
55%, that is so. If that ratio was to go, then even in STEM and technology and jobs today, it should go the same way. That's what I believe.
Jack, you know, from where you sit or from where you stand, does it disturb you that you know, less than 30% of our researchers are women in Kenya, yet we want to become a research-driven economy?
Absolutely. I mean, it is quite startling. If you look at overall, you know, STEM-type courses, and here we're including things such as food science into all that, you know, and engineering, you have a figure of 35% who graduate every year across our universities, and then you have how many of them who actually do go ahead and practice and get opportunities? It's 18%. You know, so you have researchers who are less than 30%. You know, it's quite startling that we don't give, not only do we train them really well, but we also don't give them the opportunity to practice what we train them. And so those are some of the things that organizations like us and Microsoft investing here are trying to remedy. We have something called the Microsoft Research Labs here, and they actually Microsoft Africa Research Institute, and they are hiring PhD holders, and I'm glad to say that I think about 60% are women in that team. So we are doing our small way of doing it. I just want to circle back to the question you asked, Romana, also. At a macro level, what are the things we can do? And I'll tell you what, O'Brien, back in the days when I graduated from computer science, if you had a passion for engineering, building, not consuming or being an admin, you know, or carrying laptops around and fixing for people their laptops, you know, those type of jobs were available, but to build the actual operating system that people use were not there. So some of us had the privilege to go outside the country to go and practice what we learned. In this era where you have people like Microsoft investing now and saying, hey, listen, you people are talented, and we are going to make sure that we give you the opportunity to practice your innovations for us and build global products. That, to me, is an important milestone in terms of being positive role models for all of us. So you can imagine, I mean, people who look like me and you and Rajput, you know, are actually building Windows operating system. You know, what does that say to our kids? They'll be looking at it, girls, boys, they'll be all looking and saying, wow, if they can do it, I can do it as well. And so I think from a macro level, just having positive reinforcements for girls that, hey, you can also get to this point and do better than us, because the idea is for the next generation to do way better than we have, not take them backwards, is one of those things that I think investments like what Microsoft is doing, I'm sure others are going to come, because they always tend to follow Microsoft, will spur the industry to also encourage more women to get into tech.
Look, Rajput, we have the Konza Technopolis, you know, we have the Jomo Kenyatta University of Technology, and many other institutions, you know, that are dedicated towards you know, the training of STEM courses. We're also seeing the establishment of KAIST, you know, Kenya Institute of Advanced, you know, something like that, you know, at Konza Technopolis. So how do we enlighten girls and tell them, look here, there are these institutions, there are these opportunities that we believe that you can pursue and make it in life?
Yeah, so it comes right from the grassroots. How are we socialized as girls? I'm happy to tell you, O'Brien, that I'm one of 2 daughters. My father was the eldest of 10, 9 boys, 1 girl. So maybe because he only had one sister, he didn't know how to tell us, don't do this or don't do this. I did everything. I didn't just play with dolls. I also had those small matchbox toys of cars. So there were vehicles. I used to play with them. I used to climb trees. I used to do all kinds of things, because that's how you discover your world. And we have to allow girls to grow up and discover the world around them. This is very, very important. And they must be made to feel that they can do anything, that there is no limitation. Once we empower our children in this way, then we are heading in the right direction. For me, it starts at the grassroots. Me as a parent, what am I doing to empower my daughters to believe in themselves and that they can pursue a career in STEM and it's possible. So if I've done it, so could they, if they choose to. They have no choice in this world today. We have to use technology. You cannot operate in this world today without it. So it is very important that as parents, we start, as individuals, we lead, as educators, we enforce, as business corporations like Microsoft, we encourage, like Interswitch, across the continent, not just in any one place, but also the governments need to have policies. There is UNICEF that does a lot of work with girls and STEM education as well, and empowering women. So all these organizations, I haven't named all of them, but the tertiary universities and the lot, we have to keep reinforcing this discussion around empowering women to believe in themselves, because it is a question of confidence. You have to believe in yourself that you can do it, that you will do it.
Very good. Jack, from your observation, when you look at the whole STEM ecosystem in Kenya, do you think it is crafted in a way that it becomes conducive for women and girls to thrive?
Absolutely not yet. I mean, it's an evolution. We've come a long way, to be fair. You know, from the days when you'd find a computer science class, I remember when I'd walk into, for example, a university and speak to the computer science students, you'd see out of a class of 60, you probably find 5 girls. And now you're slowly seeing a march towards more of them coming in to STEM type courses. Beyond that, the industry as it is, you know, you see quite a few number of women leaders in STEM type, you know, careers, and so it's a march towards you know, parity. As Romana rightly put, I mean, if we have a gender balance in our population, every single role must have that sort of reflection of what our population is, whether it's from, you know, gender, whether it's from disabilities, it's from whatever. But I mean, it has to have that representation. And so it's a march towards that. And you know, like I said, the interventions that the industry is playing, Interswitch and their programs, Microsoft their programs, a few other corporates are doing the same thing. I'd like to see a lot more coordination between us all, you know, in terms of coming together and pooling our resources and making sure that we do things that are not at cross purposes. But having said that, you know, it's better we do our initiatives than do nothing at all. So we're still in the march towards that sort of parity. Yeah.
And you know, there's this phenomenon that is called the leaky pipes, you know, whereby you have women, you know, who have pursued STEM courses, and as they move higher, you know, up the corporate ladder, you know, they abandon these courses. And how do we ensure that women and girls who pursue STEM courses, you know, stick to the end, Rajput?
It takes resilience, and it comes back to what I said in the beginning: confidence and belief in yourself and belief in what you're doing. We need to build people who believe in the future that they are building. Okay? They don't want to reach a stage where they say, it's too hard, I've reached up to this level, I'm going to give up. Why am I giving up? Because in the corporate world, maybe it is very male-dominated, even in the board level. So even at board level, we need to have more women represented there, because they will contribute to making decisions that considers women's needs and women's needs in STEM. So it's not enough if all we're doing, and then even at government level, we don't even have women representation in legislation, in the people making decisions for our country. So it goes up all the way. So you're talking about your corporates. Okay, so we have the balance of men and women working, it's improving. But how is it working in the board level? How is it working at government level? We have to ask ourselves. Today in the world, you can see more women leaders coming up. than maybe at any time in history. There are more women in leadership. And women see things. We see things very differently from men because we understand the world differently through our eyes. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just different. Okay? And so we've got to fix that. We've got to fix it at board level. We've got to fix it at government level as well.
But how do you actually fix that, at the board level? And for example, I mean, Kenya is still a young country that is underdeveloped, that is still developing. But when you look at the number of engineers in this country, when you talk to engineers, Board of Kenya, they'll tell you that less than 15% of engineers in this country are women. So how do you include them, or how do you mainstream them into the boardroom, whereas the number is still very, very small?
So I say this is a collective responsibility. We've got to keep encouraging this. So the men have to give more space to women to come into the boardroom. Yeah, if they are male-dominated. I met a woman who drove a taxi, and I always make a point whenever I'm talking to taxi driver, Uber drivers, etc. I ask them, so my dear, why do you drive this taxi? What did you train to do? And I met a lady who was a mechanical engineer, and she's driving a taxi. And the reason she's driving the taxi, she says, I have to feed my kids. And I have no other choice but to do that now. But I'm a trained mechanical engineer from the Polytechnic. Yep. She has the potential to do things. So sometimes those opportunities need to be opened up for people to apply and to be able to get jobs. As you know, sometimes, let's be honest, in the workforce, people get jobs not because of what they know, but who they know.
Unfortunately.
So,
Jack,
so we're never going to compete.
And actually, even before we go there, I mean, we must move from a position of competing, to a position of complementing each other.
Correct.
Because at the end of the day, we have to match together, whether men or women. And you were saying something, and before you say something about what Rajput was saying, I also want to hear from you. As men, have we played a role in suppressing the number of women and girls who are taking STEM courses?
Yeah. So just to complement what Romana said earlier, so I think also a big part of it is the work environment we present to women overall. I think that's where a lot of women fall off. If they get married and have kids, we don't create that environment that accepts that there are responsibilities she has over and beyond, based on our society, just the workplace. For example, one typical example I'm sure the viewers can appreciate is that if let's say the house help leaves and their kids to be taken care of, most likely, the way our society is built, you and I who probably wouldn't be there. It's mom who will stay at home and take care of the kids. But does the work environment appreciate that's a reality of life and say, okay, you can work from home, we will give you the kind of support you need, and not call her every 2 minutes and say, why is this report delayed, or whatever it is. And so we have to create that conducive environment, mothers' rooms in institutions,
Right.
Some organizations have gone further and now creating creches where if something happens, you can actually bring your kids to work. So I think as a society and as the industry, as all companies, we need to face the reality of what is conducive, what's a conducive working environment for women, and create it for them. I mean, we have created it for men. Some go to the extent of creating, bars and stuff where after work you can go and socialize, which is awesome, and anyone can do that. But create things that are geared towards women. Now, to your question, have we suppressed that in itself? What I've just given as an example, we are suppressing that because we're not creating a way where a girl who says, look, I want to complete this, if I want to get married, that I'll still be happy being a software engineer. If I get kids, I can still be a great software engineer because these companies have created that environment for me to do so. You find that at some point she'll start moving towards other type of disciplines, not in what she studied for. And so it's because we've not created that roadmap and that environment. So we have contributed as men. What we are trying to do now is we need to become allies, and empathize with what women go through and create that environment for them. Yeah.
And it's good that we're having this conversation, and both of you are from the private sector, because there exists a major pay disparity between women who have pursued STEM courses or people who are being hired, and they are women who have done STEM courses. comparing them with the men, how do we close this pay disparity?
Okay, I want to say something. I have been a very fortunate person. I worked in a bank where we were only 3 women in technology, okay? But I will tell you, because of the policies of the bank, they could not discriminate whether I was a man or a woman. If my grade was such and my ability was such, I was paid equal pay for the work I did. So I consider myself one of the very few lucky people, because I've heard different stories. But I think in Kenya especially, I like to think we don't look at, is this a man or a woman? How much are we paying them? No. Is this a worker? We are paying the worker. We're not looking at the gender. This is very important for institutions to do. And to add to what Jack said, something very important, like creating the environment where a woman could bring her child because she has no house help, those creches, she has got a young baby. I'm happy to tell you, when we got into this pandemic situation, one of the tools we had to use was Microsoft Teams. And I have to tell you, I had to thank our group technology CTO and said, this is one of the best things that you have provided for us, because now we could collaborate and still be at home, and we could still do the job. And for many of the women in our groups, this was so helpful. So you can come onto a call, you do your work, but some emergency has come up in the home, and you're able to go and service that emergency. So technology is enabling us, is actually making the playing field a bit level. I was very fortunate myself. I have a wonderful husband, O'Brien, I have to tell you, that I could go to
Thank
work.
God.
Yes, and I could know that he will pick the kids, he will take care of things, and there were people to support. I live in Kenya. I'm lucky. I could get help. But I know that many women struggle with this. Not everybody is as fortunate. So I'm grateful to technology because it has enabled and empowered a lot of women to have that work-life balance. They can still work and they can still be at home if need be. They don't have to come to the office and try to navigate our beautiful expressway that is coming up, that is causing a lot of traffic jams. We love it, but we know it's going to take time to finish. So we use the internet or the superhighway of technology to get us there to do the job. And that's what makes it so exciting. So technology can actually find solutions. That is true. We need to create enabling environments, but technology will help us find solutions. And I don't know if Jack agrees, but I think the future is that there will be a lot of working from home kind of situations going on in the future. And some employers are going to give up the real estate of expensive offices to kind of get that blend and balance. And this can be a plus for the ladies. I mean, for the women in our organizations, for sure.
Jack, you were talking about the future being technology. I mean, and that is something that is known, that the world is moving to a technology-driven economy. But in a world whereby less than 3 out of 10 AI professionals are women, are we at risk of leaving the women force behind?
Absolutely, and it's not only just leaving the women force behind, but leaving the women population behind. Some of you may have seen the video of this new AI that was released by one of the big tech companies, and it couldn't recognize black people. Yeah, it was big. Why?
Because
it was a huge uproar. In fact, one of them actually, another AI engine, actually associated black people with a certain animal, which was really, really not good. And so you see, when you don't include a section of the population of the world in designing and building the technology, you disenfranchise the rest of the whole segment of that of that population. And so if we do not incorporate a lot of these AI scientists who are women, and the way everything is moving. I mean, now you go to an airport, they scan your face, and that's it. You pass through the gates. I mean, that is AI already recognizing you. And so if we do not do this sort of things of bringing in more women who can empathize with what are the things that need to happen for a woman to thrive in an AI-driven world, for example, then you'll find future technologies will have bugs, will not be accepted, and could actually violate a lot of human rights of women if we don't take care in that aspect.
Yeah. So what has the public and private, who has to do what, between the private and the public sector?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's I see it as three. I see it as, obviously, the government has a big role to play in this, in terms of ensuring that they create laws and they create those sort of rules of the game. That say, like we did once upon a time in terms of, for example, in Parliament, the gender rule has been existing. Even in corporates, you have to put that in. We created rules for people living with disabilities that our walkways must have, must be disability. We don't follow them. So we have those sort of rules that need to be created. The industry, we as players in the industry, private sector, also have a role to play, because we can't disenfranchise one section of the community. And there's one last constituent that we really must talk about, and those are parents. Romana gave example of her dad, who empowered her, who believed in her. We as parents and parents who are watching this, you play a big role in influencing your child's life. And so if you give them the right kind of mindset, especially the girls, the right kind of mindset, I tell you what, they will do you proud. Speaking on self-evangelism here, I'm yet to meet a software engineer anywhere in the world who's jobless. I am yet to meet one. I really am. And if you're jobless and you're a software engineer, please get my contacts from O'Brien and send me your CV. so if we empower these girls, they will do you proud. So please push them to software engineering. But
also, I mean, how then do we create deliberate efforts? Even at our curriculum level, that we craft curriculum that drives women and girls, into taking STEM courses, because we cannot just leave it to the masses of nature.
Absolutely. So our education system is one of the most important elements that we have. We need to have an education system that empowers STEM and empowers women to appreciate STEM. I remember when I was in school, a lot of the girls would say, oh, maths is really boring, they didn't find it exciting, or it's very difficult. But that's because it depends how you are taught it and how you're socialized from a very young age. So starting right from kindergarten, I always say these things start from the very beginning. Exploring the world around you is very important, because this is part of science. This is a part of learning about your environment, appreciating all the things that are there. We must get our education system right. If we are going to compete with the big Asian tigers, we've got to absolutely get our education system right. And it might mean that we need to study other countries that have done this successfully and then incorporate that into our education curriculum. We've also got to remember that teachers are a very important part of the education system. And the reason I'm raising this is I was shocked to learn that in a country like Finland, for example, to teach children, you have to have a master's degree, because they believe that only a very well-educated person should be teaching the next generation. Now, ask yourself, who are the people who are becoming teachers in Kenya today? Are they master's degree students, who are master's degree students in the university? I don't think so. I think those are the people, or if you get a lower grade, you'll go into teaching. You get a higher grade, you'll go into something else. So we don't respect teaching as a profession. And if we don't respect teaching as a profession, how on earth are we going to then create the next generation of brilliant STEM students? How? Boys or girls at this point, yeah? So for me, what's very important is that we take education very seriously, we get our education system right. I think it's gone through a few iterations in Kenya. And do we have the right education system that is going to help this country meet its needs for development in the future? I worry very much about that, because I don't think we've quite got it. And we're on the journey, but we need to take this very, very seriously.
And you have brought up, something very interesting, because when you look at statistics, out of the more than 100,000 graduates, who enter the job market, in Kenya, less than 30% are in the science field. And out of the 30%, less than 10% are women. So how then do we change these in a country whereby we want to boost manufacturing to about 15% of our GDP? We want to become a newly industrialized nation, by the year 2030, which is about 8 years from now. Jack.
Yeah, I mean, let me depress you a little bit more on your stats.
You want to do that.
so you have a million kids turning 18 every year in this country. 1 million. The job availability every year, no matter, from what the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics says, is max 200,000 every year. So 800,000 every year. Where are they all going? And that's the biggest question. Out of the 200,000, it's the number you talked about, less than 10% in STEM who are actually being hired. Less, significantly lower. And so it is quite a daunting challenge for all of us. And we need to take it on as a society and figure it out. What we are playing our part in doing is availing the opportunities. And that's what I think for people like me, and I guess Romana, who's a GM as well, is how do we create these opportunities for those who are coming out? Now, we can only do so if the talent pipeline is also addressed. So, for example, like I told you, the conversion rate for software engineers in Kenya, this is just generally speaking, is if you do 15 interviews, you'll probably get 3 people. And then out of the 3 people, 0.8 is women. And the reason why is because it's a statistical number. So you find that less than a third are women. This conversion rate of 15 to 3 needs to be addressed. That means we're churning out people in STEM courses as well who are not addressing what the industry wants. So problem number 1 we need to fix. So a lot of partnership between industry and academia is happening. I recently saw in the newspaper, I don't know how true it is, but I saw in the newspaper that government is going to attach funding to universities based on the jobs that their graduates get. And I think that's a good metric, because you could be training people on archaic things that, you walk into Microsoft and we look at you and we're like, okay, that was something for 20 years ago. We are dealing with customer needs now. So we need to bridge that gap between industry and academia to absorb them in. And then beyond that is also addressing what Romana said, how do you teach girls STEM to make sure that they thrive in it as well? They like it, the way they are wired, the way they think, they feel like this is something that's relevant to them. The good news in this is that it's not unique to Kenya. I've gone to Asia, to Europe, to the US. The numbers of software engineers for example, in Europe is 20%. 80% is men. And with all the advancements, they still are struggling with that. But I think it's an opportunity for Africa to show them how things are done right. Because we show the world many things that are done right, from mobile money to many other things. So we'll show them this is how you actually include women in the workplace. Yeah.
And you have brought about the issue of academia vis-a-vis what the market needs. And I was having a conversation with the Institution of Engineers of Kenya. And one of the biggest concerns why we're having a major shortage of engineers in Kenya is because our training is still based on the 70s model. We are yet to upgrade to start training engineers who are going to meet today's need. So, Romana, how then do we get there?
So like I said, it's a very conscious effort. You've got to learn from people who've done it successfully. So there's many examples around the world that you can go and see how have other people done it. And we need to then say, what do we need to do? And understand how the education system works. And for me, it comes down to, there has to be political will to do this. When you are, our country, the government's job is to plan for the future. Yeah, so they have to look into the future. To look into the future, they have to look at people or other countries that plan like this. People like China don't plan for 5 and 10 years. They plan for 50, 100 years. And they execute those plans. And what you're seeing is in the growth and expansion of China, in the expressway I just made, you see them everywhere. It's because they had a deliberate plan, which they put in place, and they followed it through. So we need to plan better. As Kenyans, we need to plan as the entire African continent, we have a big problem with planning. We see everything just here, the immediate need for now.
But we have Vision 2030. Which
yes, we have Vision
conceived
2030.
in the year 2010.
Yes, which is a great start. Don't get me wrong, and I'm sure they're making some great inroads, but we have to keep doing this, because now we're already reached 2022. Where's the next plan for 2050? I'm just saying to that. And then we need to look at Vision 2030 and say, well, this is what we said we would do. And, you know, do those KPIs like we do in the business and say, did we achieve this? And if not, what did we learn? Because I have learned from running many projects, if you do not learn from your mistakes, you'll keep making them over and over and over again. Actually, so we've got to learn.
There is a quote that if you do not learn from your mistakes, you end up repeating the same mistakes.
Absolutely.
Look, for example, you know, the workforce, in the Kenya's health workforce, I mean, you have a situation whereby 80% of the workforce are female. But when you look at the executive level, only 20% are women. Why would we have this kind of a situation, Jack?
Yeah. So first of all, you know, in the health sector, when you say 80% are women, you know, that's a very good example of positive reinforcement that women can do it. So many of them come into that field because they see other women there. So, you know, one brings another and another and another and another. So I hope we can replicate that in our more STEM type courses where we get more women now saying, I can do it. So I head there and have positive role models. Now, the flip side of that is that we kind of stopped there and didn't promote them to the point where they're now actually making managerial decisions and making sure that they're driving the cost of our healthcare here. Maybe if they did, we put more of them there, would do a lot better job in maternal health, in child mortality, etc. So because they are the ones who actually appreciate what goes on. Look, I think picking the health sector would be probably a good example, but we can replicate it, of course, even in the private sector, as Romana said. How many of them are in the boardrooms? I think it's one of those things that we say we have to create a condition or an environment where we actually promote more women. But at the same time, men, we need to be more allies. We need to speak up more. For women, you know, if you know that it's a woman who's actually good for the job, you know, please speak up and be an advocate for her, because what she goes through is not necessarily what you go through. I'm not saying that men go through an easier time, and that's a fallacy. But it's not the same, and we have to create that environment that makes sure that women actually get more empowered. I mean, if you look at a population like us, you know, the boy child is probably given more opportunities from a young level. Even the pride of the family, speaking the truth, is more towards that, and we have to face it as a culture. So we have to not be equal, but you know, equity. You know, make sure that we push them a bit higher than to get what they want to achieve. Yeah.
And it's proper that you have brought the issue of you know, cultural into this conversation, because I mean, when you go to the rural areas, you know, what are the chances that you know, a family is likely to support a child, a girl child who plans to become an engineer, for example, or a software engineer? What are the chances?
Yeah, I mean, and that's why I addressed your audience. You know, I said the parents are the first place where you need to empower the mindset of your children, both boys and girls, but more so. Know that the challenges a girl child will face is significantly higher, and so we need to do a better job there. And also, as us as a culture, you know, one of the things that I've heard some of my software engineers say is that they don't understand why there's such a parity between women and men. Why? Because for them, for example, their sisters go to see their parents more than even the men do. And they take care. Who takes their parents to hospital? It's the girls. You know, for us, we send the money and that's it. You know, we're good. So I think there's also that sort of thing that we have to come to the reality of how things are done and create that environment for girls. Yeah.
Romana, I also want to hear from you. I mean, because, you know, we are in Africa, and somebody says Africa is our business, and we can't run away from that fact. But you know, how do we then nurture, you know, and inculcate a culture of strength and nurturing women who are going to, or nurturing girls who are going to venture into the world of STEM? Because let's face it, if a bulb is broken at home, who is more likely to be told to fix it? Is it a boy or a girl? So how do we deal with
those challenges?
Exactly.
Yeah, so like I said, it starts with you and me. What are we doing today? We're raising awareness. Awareness is extremely important. If we don't talk about the problems in our society, they'll never get addressed. If they're always kept on the back burner and we don't talk about them, then there'll always remain problems that are never solved. So the first thing is to speak up and say we have a problem. Once we admit we have a problem, then we can start to look for ways to address it. And one of the ways we're addressing it is awareness, telling people this is a problem, we need to do something about it. Everyone has a role to play. The opportunities exist. So the second thing is that the girls must see there's opportunities exist. They must see role models there who are succeeding in this field and succeeding and doing great things. And they say, how did you do it? You're a woman. And you tell them and you share your stories. This is very important. So we must empower the next generation as the women we are. We must lead by example. This is extremely important. I'm very happy to hear Jack speak today about how much work there is to do, because there is a lot. I do not take for granted for all the people who are putting their efforts together, whether it's government, business, individuals, educators, everybody is doing this. We are on a journey, is what I can say. So if we get dads like Jack and yourself or Brian, who see things differently, the next generation will be different. I am sure of it. But so also, we can only improve.
But also, this is also a challenge to women, I mean, who have made it in the STEM courses. I mean, have they come up with mentorship courses, mentorship programs, for young people?
I'd like to think anybody in leadership today is a mentor. I got a huge shock when I was talking to a young lady who is a software developer, Jack, I just want to mention. And she had an issue. She's a Scrum Master, and that's the term we use for a team that's leading, the development of a product. And she says, I have an issue, Auntie, with being called Scrum Master. I don't want to be called Scrum Master. And I said, why? Because I'm a woman, I lead 24 men, and I want them to respect me. And a master is a male-dominated word. So I asked her, so what word would you like to be used? And she said, and her boss agreed. It was very interesting. She's called Scrum Queen.
Scrum Queen.
Yes. So on a light note, so we are empowering ourselves that we are queens of our areas of focus in technology and STEM. And we want to be recognized for it. So we're speaking up.
Because time is almost well spent here. I want to hear from Jack. I mean, what is the role of men in uplifting the well-being and the welfare of women and girls in STEM?
Yeah, I think it's number one, we need to speak up more for them. That's for sure, because the more you have more allies in something, the more you're able to achieve more. And so we need to do that. And just piggybacking on also what Romana said, I think again, if you're a woman who's in STEM type courses, join one of those initiatives to mentor other girls. One of the good example I give the women folk in Microsoft is, people have gone to study E10, where our marathon runners come from. Scientists have gone, taken their blood, mixed it up, trying to figure out why are these guys so good? Is it the water they drink? Is it the climate? Is it the tea they drink? What is it that makes them so good? But it's power of the mindset. When one boy saw, the first marathon runner win, the next one saw it, the next one, the mindset was like, hey, we are the best and we can do this. And so the same thing with women. When you have more positive mentors reinforcing your mind, it becomes easier for you because you're like, hey, I can do this as well. And also the society accepts it as overall. When I see a software engineer who's a woman coming in, I'm like, okay, would this possibly be Kipchoge? That I'm hiring here. For software engineering, because there was one who passed through me a couple of years ago and did an awesome job. So that sort of thing has to be built within it, and all of us have a role to play in it.
Romana, finally from you, are you seeing a situation whereby, the equilibrium of women in STEMs and men in STEM is going to be standardized?
Certainly, I'm extremely hopeful. I believe in a future of Kenya where we are going to have more women in STEM. I am going to be a big advocate of encouraging all women to pursue a course in STEM and to pursue a career in a STEM subject, and to be a leader and to promote other women by all means. Promote all the girls, encourage them, whoever they are, be they your nieces, your cousins, your small sisters, whoever it might be, your friends, your neighbors, your daughters, anything. Please encourage more women to take STEM subjects. Our country needs it. This is an appeal from me to everyone. Please encourage the girls to believe in themselves, that they can do it, and show them role models of people who have done it. We have lots of examples in our country that we can start with. I remember Professor Ngare Mathai. She's one of my heroes, one of my role models, and a protector of our environment, a scientist, a zoologist, and in her own right. We should be encouraged by such Nobel laureates and others. So please, the future is very bright for anybody in STEM. And as Jack says, the world is in short supply of developers. We need them like you cannot believe it. So learn to code. I think everybody should learn to code from kindergarten. Let me say, start to teach them to code in kindergarten. That's why I said the curriculum has to change. And we've got to teach children a number of things so that they can be competitive on the global stage in the future. And that would be my dream.
Very well. And Jack, before I let you go as well, can you probably maybe take a few minutes, to highlight some of the areas that you feel women can take advantage of and thrive within the STEM ecosystem?
Yeah, I mean, overall, in the whole area of STEM, I think it's open for the taking for women, to be honest. There's no one particular place I can pinpoint. What I can assure the girls and the parents of girls who are watching this, the role for me and people like Romana here is to create opportunities for your kids. And so please push them, because we have created the opportunities. I mean, the Microsoft Development Center that builds things for Microsoft, we started in 2018. The ambition was to create 300 jobs here in Kenya. Now we're at 500. 500 well-paying jobs, because these are knowledge workers. These are not factory workers, so to speak. And so they are able to take care of their families. I mean, how we do it in Africa. You take care of your brothers, your sisters, you educate them, your families, etc. And we will continue creating more jobs, as, for example, as Microsoft. We have right now, I think, almost 100 open positions. And so, we are creating opportunities. We need the girls to take advantage of these opportunities we're creating, and many more are coming. Like I said, I'm sure other organizations out there globally are seeing what Microsoft is doing in Kenya and will say, oh, okay, so they have good people. Let's go there and invest. And so the jobs are coming. What you need to do is just make sure that we have the talent pipeline, and a lot of it being girls.
Very good. Yeah. Thank you very much indeed for finding time to be with us in the last 1 hour. We appreciate, of course, because of your insight, and of course, let's look forward for a more equal society in terms of women who are taking STEM courses, and let's try to level the playing field.
Absolutely.
Very good. And to the people watching this program, thank you very much indeed. Let me tell you this. I mean, the world is moving to a technologically driven future. You don't want to be left out because you're a woman or because you're a man. All of us must move together, because we have to be there in that future, and we must start living that future now. And for those people who are in the market looking for jobs or thinking about what kind of a course or studies am I going to take, please be encouraged by the fact that there are so many jobs within the STEM's ecosystem. Don't think twice about it. My name is O'Brien Kimani. Thank you for your time. Remember, Tamarini is coming up next with Khalid. Stay right here. Good afternoon.